Hi, I'm Chris Corson, and thank you for coming on this virtual tour to my studio, which is room 303 of the Greenbelt Community Center. I'm an artist in residence here, and I teach ceramic sculpture. In fact, in our virtual summer session, I'll be teaching a sculpture course, and I think there are still spots. So it would be very nice to interact with you in that way too. So as people join, again, I'm Chris Corson, ceramic sculptor. I want to show you, I'll reverse the camera in a moment. I want to show you a series of things that I'm working on right now that I really care quite deeply about. I think that there are times in all of our lives when we just get angry, when we're frustrated, where we just need to shout. And these pieces, as you'll see, are my shout at the world pieces. So as I say, I'll reverse the camera in just a second, but let me also say that once I do that, I won't be looking at the Instagram screen. I'll be checking back from time to time because some of the other segments have been a bit glitchy. But I won't be looking at the Instagram screen. So, please comment and pose questions, but I won't see them most likely until kind of the end of my spiel about the 5 pieces. But I'll come back and look at the screen then, and I hope we can have some discussion. And my segment is 15 minutes, but I'll actually stay around for as long as anyone wants to talk. So here we go. So these pieces are really about quite existential problems that we have as humans, as a species, and we're just not solving them. I've chosen for this series to use the form of Estella, which is an upright inscribed marker. They were very common in ancient Greece and Rome. And then on top of those forms, the inscribed stela, I've added sculpted forms that, for me, put the message into a physical reality. From left to right, let me show you. These pieces are about children needing a better world, about species loss and ego survival, about modern day slavery, about the plight of refugees, and about racism. So since doing these pieces has not taken my anger away, there's still too much to care about and to do. I expect that I will continue this series. I think I'll probably get to 7 or 9 pieces. Before I talk about the individual ones, I'll just say 2 quick things. One is that these pieces are very different from my prior work, which for years has been about sculpting human figures to explore and portray inner emotional states. I expect that work will continue. You can see it on my website, chriscorsonsculpture.com. Second, I want to say that I'll be telling you, why I made these pieces and what they mean to me. But your reactions to them will be based on your life experience, and your reactions are just as valid as mine. I just hope, frankly, that these works are powerful enough to stir you up. I did this first piece very shortly after I came to live in Greenbelt about a year ago and started to volunteer in kids' ceramic classes. The community center here, which is a wonderful place, the community center really provides a very safe environment and good role models to encourage kids to learn and to grow in all sorts of creative ways. But working with the kids in this way, and I'm so glad to be part of the process here, really brought home to me how many people, how many kids throughout our country, all across the world, don't have an environment like this. I mean, they don't have, or they're trying to grow up in circumstances that don't provide emotional or educational support, that don't have economic opportunity, and sometimes even physical safety. Even with wonderful parents around the world, too often the deck is stacked. Children are our future, and the world just needs to be doing a better job at raising them. So I put an innocent but troubled child's head on this Stella. The Stella reads, "Be the world I need," and I hope you can see the lettering. In later pieces, these others, I inscribed more deeply, but the sculpted form, "Be the world I need," the sculpted form, the child is holding his own shoulders with the backs of his hands facing out as if he's trying to protect himself, but of course his chest is totally exposed and vulnerable, and children are vulnerable. They can't protect themselves. That's supposed to be our job. And as a species, we really need to be giving them the world they need for proper support and growth. Something you'll see on all of these pieces, it's just important to me to do it this way, is the inscribed message isn't just kids need a better world. The inscribed message in all of these pieces comes from the sculpted subject matter that I'm attaching to the Stella. And this is this child saying to us, "Be the world that I need." This is my second one. It also came out of working with kids classes. And I was doing a lot of making animals with them. And animals had really not been part of my own sculptural practice before. And I found that I was really enjoying exploring with them, but for myself, exploring the forms of the animal world. But, as adults, we also know that we're not protecting that world. Take this rhinoceros. It's a massive, strong, powerful animal, and they're almost extinct. So I decided that I wanted to do a Stella, the second one in my series, on species loss. And it's not just species loss for the animals, it's for ourselves. The Stella reads, "Our survival is yours. Unless we stop killing off the animal kingdom through climate change, habitat loss, predation, it seems pretty obvious that we won't be far behind." I added a snake to the animals because we really need to care about all animals and not just the ones that we like. And I added this cardinal. And I didn't add the cardinal because cardinals are threatened. I mean, quite the reverse, they're plentiful. But that's what everyone thought, and it was the case for the passenger pigeon in the 1800s. People back then wrote about passenger pigeons being so numerous that massive flights of them would darken the sky. 1901, they were completely gone from the wild. 1914, they were extinct. So let me give you a couple of sculptors' comments actually about this piece. You'll hear some activist comments from me, and you'll hear sculptors' comments. I really enjoy putting on this bird. I wanted a very light and airy form to finish the top of the piece. I wanted it to contrast with how heavy, massive, and heavy the rhinoceros head is. And the way this at least looks to me is once I see this bird, I'm satisfied that it's there, and then I don't ask the question of where's the rhinoceros's body, which is even more massive, obviously, than the head. It seems to be a composition that kind of resolves itself in that way. Also, doing this rhinoceros head after years of doing the human form was like, pushing a reset button. The rhinoceros head is just crazy. The eyes way down here, this massive forehead, the ears that come forward. It was really, really interesting to do. So these first two pieces, the child piece and this one, are finished. Clay, this is process right now. Clay needs to be fired twice. The first firing is called bisque firing, and it really is to stabilize the clay, to start to make it hard and stable. The clay that I use after bisque firing turns pink. The coloration on this piece and the one before it came from the second firing. And they are pit-fired pieces, which is a process whereby I bury the pieces totally in sawdust in a trench in the ground. I ignite the sawdust and then let it smolder and burn down around the pieces, and it takes about 3 days. And that smoldering process is what imparts the color. Sometimes I get pieces that are mostly grays, as in the first one, and sometimes they go to these warmer, browner tones, as in this one. This third piece has been bisqued, so that's why it's pink. It will then go through a second firing, probably pit firing, but I'm not sure. This Stella, it's just that there's so many people in the world who are not in circumstances where they can speak up for themselves. And maybe that's undocumented workers in our country who are afraid that if they make themselves known, they'll be deported. It can be trafficked persons. It can be people in forced labor situations. And in parts of the world, there's still modern day slavery. So the message on this one is be my voice. Everyone should have the right to speak up for themselves, support them if they do, but this piece is for the people who can't. As Martin Luther King said, no one is free until we are all free. And these upraised fists, it's a protest symbol, but they're shackled. Arms, any body is out of sight beneath the chains and the bars. I made these chains. They're ceramic. Everything that I'm showing you is clay. But I made these chains with separate links so that I could just rearrange them, for example, in different configurations, different installations. Other things, this split on the side is intentional. I think that there always needs to be hope. This fourth piece I'm handling very carefully because it is quite fragile. As you can see, it's not pink, which means it has not gone through the bisque firing process yet. This is just dried clay and quite fragile. So it came out of discussing this project of mine with another sculptor. She cares very deeply about refugee issues. And we were just talking about what sorts of forms would have a strong visual impact. At that time, the news was full of images coming out of Syria, of bombed out homes, bombed out neighborhoods. And a lot of times, the images we see of refugees are taken in the camps that they often have to flee to. And, you know, those images can be heartbreaking. But in a way, I think sometimes they set up refugees as people who are other than us, you know, other than ourselves. You know, we can't really imagine our living in camps like those. So I wanted to take a different tack, and that is to really show the homes, the neighborhoods ruined, that the refugees are fleeing from. You know, they care about their homes, their neighborhoods, the same way we care about ours. You know, they didn't want to flee, but where they were became unsafe or it got destroyed. The message on this one is, help my brother. He fled. It's too late for this person. You know, he stayed and he died. So when the choice that people face is to die or to flee, I think that our country should not turn its back on the people who flee. I don't think we should slam the figurative door at the border. I don't think that we should be taking children away from refugee mothers and putting them in cages. They're like us. So another quick sculptor's note on this. I made this piece when I actually thought that I was running out of clay and might have a hard time getting some more of the clay body that I use. So I was scratching around my studio for things that I had made in the course of other projects, and they were scraps, and so I assembled the scraps. I got as far as just this piece and the rest of it, and I kind of liked it, but it just wasn't quite there. So I wrapped it up and I kept it really for weeks until I decided that what it needed were these other elements, and so I added them. And I think it helps the composition. So this last piece, or at least last until I start another one, which I intend to do, is I was working on it yesterday. I think it's done or pretty close to done now, but at this point, the clay is still workable. It's still moist. From the beginning of doing this series, I knew that I wanted to do a piece on racism. Black lives do matter. To quote Dr. King again, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. But justice is taking an unconscionably long time. Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King were both murdered fighting for racial justice, for human justice. And the human toll is dominating the news today. This Stella has a two-part message. Both King and Kennedy were inspirational humans and inspirational examples of humanity. The qualities of compassion, sympathy, the state of being humane. I wanted to join them together in this way, not because they were the same, but because as different people from different races, they strove for the same unity of human rights. The second part of the message is pretty blunt. Do not divide me. As individuals, we all belong to, we embody different aspects of humanity. I hope in the good sense of humane compassion. Let's not keep dividing that. As a sculptor, this piece was a big challenge. I've done the human figure for more than 10 years, but portraiture is a thing unto itself. Capturing individuality, capturing personality is very subtle. And frankly, I didn't try to do it very often, and when I did, I didn't think it was very successful. But, you know, we give ourselves challenges. In order to bring this piece to fruition, I just needed to take that issue on. When I was first thinking about this piece, you know, I thought maybe I would just combine heads. One which was, you know, generically Caucasian, the other which is sort of generically African American. But frankly, even to say it that way raises stereotyping, and that's the opposite of what I was going for. So the piece quickly morphed into trying to capture these two heroes of mine. And finding their respective likenesses, it was just rooted in just the basic shape of the skull, which is so different, in the folds around the eyes and the cheeks, or not, as the case may be, the shape of the mouth. I did these as separate skulls, and then I cut them and joined them. But I would make them, I would cover them, I'd come back the next day, I'd decide whether I thought I was close enough or not, you know, I'd make some changes. This one took, well, at least several weeks to make. As a sculptor, I'm actually happy with the result. As an activist, I'm actually pretty pleased that I could do these separate heads and then join them in a way that I think honors them both and results in a strong statement of the shared humanity of both of them, and I hope I think I'm actually pretty far over time, so I will let you all go, and thank you for watching.